There comes a moment in every life when we stand before the quiet tomb of who we once were. We are gently invited, sometimes by circumstance, sometimes by our own aching hearts, to pause at the threshold of yesterday's self and whisper a solemn goodbye. It is here in this charged stillness that we learn to honor the death of our former self. We acknowledge the habits that once protected us, the survival identities that once kept us safe, and the outdated stories clinging to our bones like old skin. And we recognize these are not failures, but markers on the path we have walked. Letting go begins with naming. We whisper, "I see you, old friend. You carried me when I could not carry myself. You shielded me when I feared the world's sharp edges. You found cracked light in the darkest hours." We bow to that version of us who cobbled together a fragile fortress from fear and bravado. We thank those timid limbs that once refused to move, those tight jaws and clenched fists that kept pain at bay. We acknowledge, without these defenses, we might not have reached this moment of safe harbor. And yet, we realize that the fortress has become a cage. The bricks grow heavy. The moat no longer protects, it isolates. The watchtower that once gave us a vantage now cuts us off from the view beyond. At this precipice, we gather courage to step backward, crumbling one brick at a time. We exhale the stale air of old stories. I am only my scars. I am less than others. I must fight or flee to survive. We loosen the grip on outdated habits, the rhythms of self-doubt, the rituals of avoidance, the worn grooves of inner criticism. In the gentle release, space opens. It feels strange at first, like a building without walls, like a bird with newly molted wings. We fumble for balance in the emptiness, but in that open air, possibility stirs. A curious aliveness, long dormant, tingles within us. We sense the truth. Our worth is not defined by our worn-out identities, but by the infinite unfolding of who we still might become. This is a ritual of gentle mourning and fierce renewal. We honor the past by letting it go. We gather the lessons embedded in every crease of our former selves. Resilience learned in hardship, compassion born of sorrow, creativity sparked by constraint. We carry these gems forward, freed from the burden of old armor. Now, with open hands and a tender smile, we take the first step into the landscape we have yet to explore. The terrain is unfamiliar, but alive with promise. We walk lightly, unencumbered by the weight of who we once thought we must be. And so, with quiet reverence, we lay to rest the remnants of yesterday's self. In that sacred farewell, we make room for our rebirth, whole, curious, and wonderfully free. There is profound alchemy at work in the hushed stillness of our most uncomfortable moments. When the world's clamor subsides and we find ourselves alone with our beating hearts, we stand at the edge of something powerful, the threshold of transformation. In that darkness, where familiar certainties dissolve and our defenses lose their taut grip, we discover a sacred crucible in which the old self is melted down so that a new self may be forged. When life's pressures converge, loss, doubt, confusion, we instinctively want to fill the emptiness with distraction or reassurance. Yet it is precisely in the void, in the quiet ache, that the seeds of our next emergence lie dormant. These seeds need darkness to germinate, and stillness to take root. Just as a seed beneath the soil commits itself to unseen processes of breaking down its old form, so too must we sink into our own interior darkness, surrendering to the slow, mysterious work of becoming. Discomfort shakes us from complacency. It reminds us we are alive, that something within longs for depth and authenticity. In the absence of noise and numbing habits, we are forced to confront the raw materials of our inner landscape. Dreams we've ignored, wounds we've papered over, yearnings we've silenced. This is no accident of suffering, but a sacred summons to inner growth. Each restless night, each anxious pulse, each tremor of unease is a clarion call to pay attention. To reframe these moments as sacred preparation is to shift from resistance to reverence. Rather than battling the stillness, we bow to it. Rather than fleeing discomfort, we lean in. We might sit with our trembling hands, our racing thoughts, letting them pass like clouds while our awareness remains rooted in the present hush. We breathe into the tension, inviting it to speak. What wants to be seen? What wants to be shed? What wants to be born? Through this posture of open receptivity, our inner chrysalis begins its work. old patterns loosen their hold. Hidden strengths awaken. Intuition sharpens. We glimpse new possibilities, shimmering on the periphery of our consciousness. And when the moment of emergence arrives, we rise, no longer forged by external accolades or the habits of survival, but by the profound inner work we have endured in silence. Transformation is not a firework that lights the sky for an instant. It is the slow, steady glow of metamorphosis that begins in the dark. It begins when we choose receptivity over reaction, presence over avoidance, trust over fear. In honoring the sanctity of our quietly uncomfortable moments, we open ourselves to becoming more fully who we are meant to be. There is a hidden gift at the heart of what feels like loss, a gentle unburdening that we too often mistake for tragedy. When we cling to our constructed sense of self, every change, every ending, every shift in circumstance can feel like a wound. Yet each perceived loss is really an invitation to release the ego's tight grip, to let go of stories that no longer serve us, and to discover an uncharted freedom on the other side. Imagine your life as a vast theater in which the ego has taken the lead role. It demands attention, craves approval, and rehearses its lines of "I am right," "I am important," "I am safe." When a scene changes, when a relationship ends, an identity shifts, or control slips through our fingers, the ego cries out in protest, as though the world itself is being torn asunder. But beneath the drama lies a simpler truth. Those roles were props, the scripts were borrowed, and what remains when the curtains fall is the open stage of your truest self. Loss loosens the props from our grasp. It shakes the foundation of identity we thought was solid. In that shaking, we begin to question, what am I when I'm not defined by achievement, by circumstance, by the labels I've worn? When the ego-based anchors drop away, the need to be special, to compare, to defend our self-image, we feel a lightness, a release. It can be disorienting at first. We are unmoored, unfamiliar with the breeze that now lifts us. But this is the dawn of true liberation. To honor this release, we can gently observe our suffering and ask, whose story is this? Whose expectations am I carrying? What grief arises because I believed myself to be small, unworthy, or separate? As we turn inward, mourning not the loss of a person or circumstance, but the loss of outdated self-concepts, we begin to cradle our pain with compassion. We recognize that underneath the ego's lament, there is a curious spark of relief. Release is not passive defeat. It is active surrender. We welcome the emptiness left behind, knowing it is fertile ground. We let go of the chains of comparison and regret, of what might have been and should have been. In that spacious pause, a sweet openness takes root. We see clearly which attachments were binding our joy, which narratives were obscuring our aliveness. And then, slowly, we gather the scattered pieces of self-worth from within, not from outside. We rebuild our sense of home on the solid ground of presence, authenticity, and love that requires no validation. What felt like a loss becomes the very threshold of renewal. So when the next shift arrives, when a door closes or a pattern dissolves, remember, you are not losing yourself. You are releasing the self that was never fully you. Trust that in this release lies the pathway to your most expansive, luminous life. There is no gatekeeper at the threshold of your true self. No authority whose nod you must secure before stepping into your full expression. Yet so often we stand hesitantly at the edge of our own becoming, waiting for someone, another person, society, tradition, or even our own inner critic, to grant us the right to shine. We pause, fearing their disapproval, clutching our gifts close to our chest until they fade. But the paradox of growth is that your authenticity needs no license. Your gifts, your voice, your yearnings, they belong to you by birthright. They are not subjects for committee review or debate. The moment you recognize this, you release yourself from the invisible contract you signed long ago, promising to shrink or apologize or camouflage your light so that others would feel comfortable. You realize that the fear of judgment is simply a shadow projected by an outdated part of your mind, one that mistakes safety for conformity. To claim your birthright, begin by turning inward. Notice the dreams that quicken your pulse, the ideas that sparkle in solitude, the impulses that nudge you toward unfamiliar territory. These are your inner compass, quietly insisting that you dare to be more. When you feel the familiar tug of, I can't, who am I to, or what will they think? Acknowledge it, but don't give it the reins. Thank it for its care, and gently redirect your attention to the impulse toward possibility. As you step forward, you'll feel the tremor of uncertainty. Your body remembers the times you sought approval and didn't receive it, the moments you spoke your truth and met resistance. But each act of self-authorization loosens the old fear. With every word you say that comes from your core, every choice you make that reflects your values rather than someone else's expectations, you reclaim a piece of yourself. The world may respond with applause, indifference, or even criticism, but these are reflections of others' landscapes, not your worth. Freedom blooms when you disentangle your value from external metrics. A sale, a like, a compliment. They can be pleasant, but they are not the currency of your being. Instead, learn to honor your own yes and no. Let your boundaries be your signature. Practice making small declarations daily. Choosing a project that excites you even if it's unconventional. Speaking up in a meeting when your ideas diverge from the norm. Wearing the color or style that feels you, even if it stands out. Each choice is a permission slip you write for yourself. Inevitably, some will judge. That is not your burden to carry. Their judgments say nothing about your right to exist, create, or evolve. They are echoes of their own fears and histories. When criticism arrives, you can listen for kernels of constructive insight, but you need not bow or retreat. Stand in the clarity of your intention, to live authentically, to grow without apology, to share your gifts freely. As you practice self-authorization, you become a living invitation to others. By witnessing your courage, they too may find permission within themselves to bloom. You create a ripple that extends far beyond your own life, transforming communities and cultures. So, release the waiting room of someday, the dossier of permissions you think you need. Stand tall in your skin. Speak the words longing to be spoken. Walk the path calling your name. You need no one's blessing to rise. Your life is your own canvas. Pick up the brush and paint. There is a quiet courage in letting yourself outgrow the expectations others have stitched onto your life. From the moment we learn to walk and talk, we're handed scripts, roles we should play, the dutiful child, the steady employee, the loyal partner, the safe choice. These roles can feel comforting, like well-worn coats that keep us warm in cold crowds. Yet as we shift and stretch, they begin to chafe. The arms of yesterday's coat grow tight around new possibilities. Evolution asks something different. Permission to shed old skins and follow the subtle urges of who you're becoming now. It says that what felt right 5 years ago need not bind you forever. It whispers that loyalty to your own unfolding is more vital than loyalty to a fixed identity handed down by family, culture, or history. Breaking that loyalty can feel like betrayal, of parents who hoped you'd carry on a legacy, of friends who cheered for your earlier victories, of the part of you that once needed certainty above all else. But true integrity isn't uniformity, it's honesty. It's honoring the pulse in your chest that quickens when you glimpse a path uncharted. It's recognizing that the person who made certain choices in the past has already served their purpose. You don't erase gratitude for where you've been. You simply allow yourself to keep moving. When you step into new terrain, maybe a career pivot no one else understands, a creative pursuit that feels risky, or a shift in beliefs that surprises your inner circle, you model what real change looks like. You normalize evolution by showing that growth sometimes means friction, that hearts expand by cracking open. You teach others that identity is not a statue carved in stone, but a living, breathing organism that thrives on challenge and curiosity. So when someone expresses disappointment, you're not the person we thought you were. You can respond gently, "Thank you for caring about who I was. Now I'm learning who I'm meant to be." In that moment, you reclaim your agency and honor the truth that no expectation, however loving, should ever cage your becoming. You are allowed to evolve, and in doing so, you give everyone around you permission to do the same. There is a sanctuary waiting within you, an inner citadel of safety that no external storm can breach, no past wound can undo. Yet all too often, we outsource our sense of security to people, places, or circumstances, believing that a steady job, a supportive partner, a calm environment will guarantee that nothing ever hurts again. When trauma or disappointment shatters those containers, we shake at the realization that the world can never promise us invulnerability. And in that shaking, we stand before a pivotal truth: safety must be reclaimed internally. Reclaiming safety is not about denying the pain you've endured. It begins by acknowledging the echoes of fear and distrust within your body and mind. Perhaps your heart races at the memory of betrayal, or your shoulders tighten when you anticipate criticism. Notice these sensations without judgment. These are the messengers of past wounds, calling out for your compassion and presence. By observing them, you stop feeding them with avoidance or self-blame. You become their compassionate witness. Next, tend to your foundation, your nervous system. Invite it to rest in the knowledge that you are alive, here, in this moment. Try a simple ritual. Place your hand over your heart and breathe slowly, counting each inhale and exhale. Imagine your breath as a gentle tide washing over the jagged stones of old fear, softening them with each rhythmic swell. With every breath, you signal to your body that you are at last safe enough to feel and to heal. As you cultivate this inner calm, begin to install new signposts of trust. These can be tiny actions: speaking a soft truth to someone you love, setting a boundary for your well-being, choosing a moment of stillness over pushing forward at full speed. Each time you honor your needs, you reinforce the message that your own presence is a refuge, that you are worthy of care and consideration. Over time, these choices knit together a tapestry of reliability that no external ruptures can unravel. Forgiveness, especially of yourself, plays a vital role. You did the best you could with the tools you had. If you once leaned on unhealthy patterns to survive, recognize their role as protectors in your story. Thank them for their service, then gently release them from duty. In their place, invite new habits, perhaps a daily practice of gratitude, a check-in with your emotional weather, or a commitment to reach out for support when shadows gather too thickly. Remember that rebuilding trust in life is a collaborative art. Seek allies, therapists, wise friends, supportive communities, who understand that safety is not a one-time achievement, but an ongoing cultivation. Share your journey with those who can hold space for your vulnerability without judgment. Let their steadiness mirror back your own potential for stability. Finally, celebrate each tender victory. The moment you let a wave of grief wash through you without panic. The instant you rest instead of powering through. The day you greet a new sunrise without dread. These victories may seem small, but they are the mortar binding the stones of your inner fortress. In reclaiming safety from the inside out, you transform the soil of your soul. You create a resilient ground where trust can flourish, where disappointment may still come, but no longer roots itself in fear. You become your own guardian, your own safe haven, invulnerable not because nothing can harm you, but because you have learned to stand unshaken in the living truth of your own heart. There is a quiet invitation echoing through the chambers of your heart. You are not here to perform, but to simply be. From the moment we first learned to earn affection with perfect grades, polished smiles, or flawless facades, we slipped into a pattern of performance, doing what we believed would secure approval, safety, or love. Yet each act of performance demands vigilance. We must monitor every gesture, every word, every thought, lest we stumble and risk rejection. And in that incessant striving, our souls grow brittle, starved for the nourishment of authenticity. To be real is to let go of the script handed down by institutions, peers, or even our own inner judge. It is to shed the masks of should, must, and have to, and instead to let the soft contours of our truest selves emerge. This emergence is not tidy. Realness is porous and alive. It trembles with vulnerability, breathes through uncertainty, and spills over with the messiness of genuine emotion. It is the sound of a quivering voice admitting fear. It is the tear that slips free when our hearts crack open. It is the laughter that bubbles up unbidden when we delight in the small miracles of life. Spiritual softness begins when we lean into this vulnerability without flinching. We practice noticing the tension in our shoulders when we prepare to perform, to impress, to please, to prove ourselves. We pause, take a breath, and allow our shoulders to roll back into ease. We inhale the truth that we are beloved simply because we are, not because we achieve or conform. We exhale the pressure to maintain appearances. Each breath anchors us deeper into the sanctuary of presence. divine trust grows in the fertile soil of this presence. When we cease contorting ourselves to meet external standards, we discover that life itself is unfolding in our favor. We begin to sense a benevolent intelligence at work, one that meets our honest offerings not with criticism, but with compassion. Our mistakes become teachers rather than condemnations. Our uncertainties become gateways rather than dead ends. In this alchemy, the self that performs dissolves into the self that is, and we find that enough is not a destination to be earned, but our natural state when we stand unclothed in truth. To live from this place, cultivate small acts of surrender. Share a fleeting thought with a trusted friend instead of polishing it for applause. Allow your face to register whatever you truly feel: joy, grief, exhaustion, without masking it behind a practiced expression. Sit in silence with your own company, resisting the urge to fill the space with performance or distraction. Notice how, in that stillness, a deep current of trust begins to pulse beneath the surface, whispering that you are held exactly as you are. You are not a performer on a stage demanding an audience. You are a beloved child of existence, invited to rest in the warmth of divine acceptance. As you practice realness, you will discover that the heart's capacity for love and the soul's capacity for wonder grows without limit. In this unfolding, you embody a truth that no act of performance could ever convey. That wholeness is found not in what we do or achieve, but in the courage to simply be who we are. There is a sacred continuity in our journey. We are never starting from zero, but always rising from the ashes of what we have already survived. Each trial, each heartbreak, each small triumph has laid a foundation beneath our feet, like layers of sediment that give shape and strength to who we are becoming. To rebirth ourselves with memory is to honor every scar, every lesson, and every moment that whispered, "You are stronger than you think." Imagine your life as a grand tapestry woven over time. In darker threads lie nights of loneliness and the heavy weight of loss. In brighter strands, moments of laughter, of connection, of unexpected grace. When one chapter ends, when a job dissolves, a relationship shifts, or an old belief falls away, it can feel like being plunged into emptiness. But the loom remains in your hands, and the threads of your past are not discarded. They form the very warp and weft that give depth to new patterns. To rebirth with memory is first to collect those threads. Take a moment to breathe deeply and scan your inner landscape. There are the places you weathered storm, the time you found courage to speak up, the night you wept until dawn, the morning you chose hope over despair. There are the gifts you gathered, the patience forged by waiting, the compassion born of witnessing another's grief, the clarity gleaned through hard-won reflection. Hold each memory gently. They are your ancestral lineage of resilience. Next, allow your rebirth to lean on these strengths. As you step into new territory, perhaps a calling you've only dreamed of, a relationship that asks you to show up differently, or a piece of yourself emerging at last, let the echoes of your past guide you. Remember how you once surprised yourself with resourcefulness. Recall the fierce tenderness that carried you through a dark time. Listen for the inner voice that once led you back to your own center. These memories are your compass and your anchor, ensuring you won't be swept away by uncertainty. Honoring what you've survived also means honoring who you were in each season of life. The frightened child who clung to safety, the restless adolescent who tested every boundary, the weary adult who longed simply to belong. Each version of you had a purpose and a beauty. Their strengths and their wounds are part of your living legacy. Rather than judging them or wishing they'd been different, thank them for the ways they protected and propelled you, and then welcome them home into your present self. In this way, rebirth becomes an act of gentle integration. You are not casting off the past to become someone wholly new. You are weaving what was into the fabric of what is to come. Your transformation is nourished by remembrance, not by erasure. You step forward with the fullness of your story at your back, carrying its wisdom into the uncharted expanse ahead. Finally, let this truth settle into your bones. You are a phoenix rising, yes, but your wings are not empty hollows. They are plumed with memories of every trial overcome, every tear shed, every victory cherished. They bear the imprint of all you have endured and all you have learned. As you take flight into this next chapter, do so with gratitude for your own history. In honoring your survival, you empower your becoming. You demonstrate that true rebirth is not a blank slate but a living mosaic, a testament to the beauty of a life fully remembered. There is a living resonance in who you are becoming right now, a magnetic frequency that calls forth the next chapter of your life. Each skill you practice, each value you embody, each nuance of presence you cultivate sends out ripples into the universe, aligning circumstances, people, and opportunities to your ever-evolving identity. In other words, you don't wait for the next season of your story to materialize. You bring it into being by the way you show up today. When you choose integrity over compromise, you signal to the world that this new facet of you is non-negotiable. Doors that once stayed closed begin to click open. You find yourself in conversations you might once have shied away from, offered projects you feel quietly confident to oversee, or invited into communities that resonate with your emerging ethos. These invitations are not random. They are responses to the subtle declarations you make through your posture, your language, and your decisions. Consider the quiet ways you be before you have. Long before you receive the title of coach, mentor, or leader, you listen with empathy, encourage with unwavering belief, and guide with humility. By practicing the habits of these roles in micro moments, holding space for a friend's story, suggesting a creative solution at a meeting, or modeling calm decisiveness under pressure, you vibrate at the frequency of the next version of yourself. The world, in turn, meets you there. A mentorship request appears in your inbox. A collaborative invitation arises. A door you didn't even know existed opens just wide enough for you to step through. This process is neither instantaneous nor accidental. It requires patience and mindfulness. It asks you to notice what energies you carry, gratitude or grievance, courage or fear, and to align them consciously with where you long to go. When you catch yourself reverting to an old story, "I'm not ready. They won't choose me. This isn't my place," you gently recalibrate. You remember that identity is the soil from which reality grows. Sow the seeds of possibility today, and tomorrow's garden will reflect your intention. Even setbacks play a role. When a project falls short or a connection disappoints, those experiences refine your self-image. You see more clearly which qualities you want to embody: resilience in the face of defeat, compassion in the midst of conflict, curiosity when faced with the unknown. You integrate these lessons, and your inner frequency shifts again, summoning new opportunities that require exactly that depth of character. So honor what you embody now, your emerging talents, your refined values, your present moment courage, as the beacon calling in your next life. Each act of authenticity, each step toward your highest vision signals to the world, "Here I am ready." And life responds by reorganizing itself around the truth of who you are becoming. In this dance of identity and opportunity, you do not chase your future. You create it moment by moment by being fully, unabashedly yourself. There is a sacred threshold beneath your feet right now, the precise fulcrum where everything you have learned, forgiven, and transformed converges into the first step of your new life. All the preparation, the inward alchemy of stillness and discomfort, the grieving and the releasing, has led you to this very breath. Here, in this luminous instant, you stand poised between who you were and who you are yet to become. Notice how your heart quickens as possibility stirs in your veins. The old narratives, once heavy as winter's snow, have melted away, revealing the fertile earth of your own intention. Each choice you've made, each boundary honored, each fear faced, each act of self-authorization has tilled this ground. Beneath the surface, the roots of your emerging self have taken hold, drawing strength from every challenge you survived. Now feel the pull of what calls you forward, the vision that shimmers at the edge of your awareness, the quiet longing that pulses in your chest, the invitation whispered by life itself to step beyond the confines of yesterday's comfort. You do not need a map or a guarantee, only the courage to trust that this moment is enough. Your feet cradle no illusions. They rest firmly on the promise of your own becoming. This is the moment the new life begins. Breathe in its clarity. Let your spine lengthen with the electric charge of fresh possibility. Lift your gaze to the horizon of your own unfolding and feel how the air itself seems to part in welcome. There is no turning back, only the onward arc of your soul rising into its boldest expression. So rise. Rise new. Rise bold. Rise free. Step into the open day of your own creation, carrying the light of every lesson learned and the wisdom of every wound healed. This is your full circle invitation. Stand unshaken, stand unleashed, stand alive, and know that from this moment on, you are the author of a life reborn.